This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 189-inch.
On this episode, we present the third chapter of our Weird the Al Yankovic Story series, where we chronicle our time on the set of Weird the Al Yankovic Story way back in February 2022.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
We are very excited to share the next chapter of our Weird the Al Yankovic story series with you all. But first, let's get ready for what's happening in Weird Al related news.
We challenged you, and you stepped up.
Late Friday night, we got the exciting news that the Kickstarter campaign for the Showgals documentary, which tells the story of Tight and Nerdy, the Weird Al themed burlesque troupe, was fully funded.
Now, once the campaign officially closed, they hit 104% of their goal, raising an incredible $119,724.
Now, overall, the campaign had 574 backers, and we know many of you not only contributed, but took our challenge to up your contribution last episode. So on behalf of everyone involved with Showgals and all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, a big thank you to you.
Now, UH Jeff tells us that he is overwhelmed by the love and support and is ready to dive right into the project now that it is financially secure. We are both so very much looking forward to seeing this final film.
So be sure to follow Showgals on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for the latest updates. And of course, we will keep you updated on any major updates. Links to their social media accounts and more can be found on their official website, showgalsthemovie.com.
Now, sadly, our podcast family and the world of comedy music has lost another legend.
Jerry Samuels, the genius behind the hit novelty song They're Coming to Take Me Away, Haha, passed away last Friday, March 10th, at the age of 84.
Performing under the pseudonym Napoleon XIV, Jerry was truly one of a kind with enormous talent, personality, and immeasurable kindness.
Jerry appeared on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast last year in episode 173-inch, and his appearance on our show was perfectly bizarre and hilarious.
Now, I will fondly remember us going to dinner with Jerry prior to Weird Al's Lancaster, Pennsylvania concert, and later on at the concert getting to witness Jerry hearing Weird Al cover part of his song, Marching Off to Bedlam, during the Yoda chant. Now, his eyes, they lit up once he recognized what was happening, and you could tell it was a magical moment for him.
If you want to hear us talk about that incredible evening we got to spend with Jerry and his wife Bobby and our friends, we share the full story on Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episode 32 centimeter.
Our friends over at Needle Juice Records are gearing up to release Jerry's never-before-released second album, For God's Sake, Stop the Feces. Now, we had planned to invite Jerry back on the podcast when they came out, but we'll be sure to keep you in the loop when we know more about that release date.
Now, Dave and I will always treasure the short time we knew Jerry and the years of humor and entertainment that he provided. So from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we're sending much love to his wife Bobby, as well as his generations of family, friends, and fans all over the globe. Gil and chill in peace, Napoleon XIV.
Well, it took 34 seasons and 744 episodes, but it finally happened.
Yes, Weird Al performed during the couch gag on the animated television series The Simpsons.
Now, you can imagine my shock and excitement when my wife Jackie and I sat down for dinner on Sunday night. We put on the television only to see Weird Al in animated form staring back at us.
What an incredible surprise. I mean, that was Oscar night, so I'm sure a lot of people weren't even watching The Simpsons. I'm so glad that you and Jackie happened to be sitting there watching it as it unfolded.
Yeah, we both did a double take, and luckily, since it was on the DVR, we got to watch it over and over and over again, and we got to watch Weird Al not only play his accordion, but he did get a few speaking lines in as well.
Well, I was at a show, so unfortunately I had to wait a little bit before I could actually watch the video you sent me, Dave, but I just sat there watching it over and over and over, and it was just so fun.
Now, this marks the third time that Weird Al has appeared on The Simpsons, the other two times being in 2003 for the Three Gays of the Condo episode, and in 2008 for That 90s Show.
Now, if you missed it, or if you want to be like us and relive the experience and hear that awesome song, you can check out the clip on Weird Al's social media accounts.
Well, clearly I was watching The Simpsons on Sunday night, so I didn't watch the Oscars.
Yes, Dave, we stayed true to our word and we actively boycotted the Oscars, of course, due to Weird the Al Yankovic Story not being eligible for an award. But we were still very thrilled to see that close friend of the Yankovics and person, Dave, you ran into on your way to the bathroom backstage at a Weird Al show, Jamie Lee Curtis, won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yes. In her acceptance speech, Jamie Lee Curtis thanked her personal hairstylist, Sean James, who just happens to be a friend of ours and past guest of David Ethan's 2000 Weird Al podcast. You can check out our conversation with Sean on episode 35-inch.
From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000 Weird Al podcast, a huge congratulations to Jamie Lee Curtis on her Oscar win, and a pretty stinking majestic congratulations to Sean James on the shout out.
Well, in other podcast news, Weird Al recently appeared on No Filter with Count Vacula, the Imagine Neighborhood podcast.
The Imagine Neighborhood is a kind and kooky story-based podcast for kids aged 4 to 10 and their families.
Be sure to check out imagineneighborhood.org for details on how to listen. And thank you to our listener, Joey Patterson, for the heads up.
Can you believe it, Dave? At the end of next week, you and I will be in Hawaii seeing Weird Al and his band perform there for the first and second time ever.
That's right. The two shows are in Honolulu on Oahu and Kahului on Maui, and we will be there for both of them.
Now, if you also plan to attend one or both of these shows, please let us know. We'd love to say hello, and don't worry, we'll have podcast stickers and wooden nickels with us to spare.
And as always, we plan to record reviews of these historic shows and release them first to our Pretty Stinkin' Majestic Patreon family.
And we're also working on recording a special guest review of one of the European Weird Al shows, so stay tuned for that as well.
If you want to hear these reviews, along with other reviews that we've recently recorded, as soon as humanly possible, be sure to sign up over at patreon.com/2000inch, because not only will you get immediate early access to these episodes, you'll also be supporting the podcast.
This episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also icy.
Oh, if you are in the market for a used Strike Master 4-stroke ice auger and happen to live in or near Darwin, Minnesota, oh boy, are you in luck.
Oh, that's right. Facebook Marketplace in Darwin, Minnesota currently has one item listed, and it's this particular auger.
Now, if you were interested, well, I was going to say act fast, but seeing as it's been listed for 4 weeks already, you're probably fine if you take your time.
Now, ice auger enthusiasts will be shocked to hear that the seller is looking for $225 or best offer.
Dave and Ethan's 2000 Weird Al podcast is not responsible for this listing. We just report the news, so please do your own due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this ice auger.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next ice fishing expedition. Discover Darwin more than just the twine ball. And augur you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to augur discoverdarwin.biz.
Well, Ethan and myself are very excited to continue our Weird the Al Yankovic Story series this episode.
During last episode, we wrapped up Chapter 2 with us on our way to the set of the Cobra Pit, after having just finished arriving at base camp and getting all checked in and settled.
In this chapter, we finally set foot in the Cobra Pit, where the infamous bar scene was filmed, in which Dr. Demento discovers Weird Al, and the world discovers two tough bikers.
So join us now as we go back to February 2022 while Dave and I film our roles in Weird the Al Yankovic Story.
All right, so last episode we left off. We were on the People Movers on our way to the set, the Virgil, where we're shooting this scene, which we're really excited to be in. Something to do with a biker bar. We don't know much beyond that. We got the script read to us, so we have a little bit of insight, but we're really excited. We don't know what's coming next. We pull up. We're driving over and we could see the Virgil, from our van. So we got really excited. We see all this like camera equipment and movie equipment outside, and we're really excited. They pull up, they drop us off right in the front, and then I don't know if it was JoJo or somebody else is like, all right, we're going to take you to the holding area. I'm like, okay, cool. We get to see the holding area. What the heck is the holding area?
Well, and I want to paint a little bit more of a picture. So we get off and there's crew members walking by. They're carrying stuff in. There's giant trucks, with the back's open. You can see they're full of equipment and all this stuff, and it's just crazy, all the stuff that's going on. And the Virgil is not a huge venue. It's not like a theater. It's just a small bar. So you can see that they're really trying to cram a lot of stuff in there, and there's like hoses coming out, and it's like air conditioning, and it was really bustling. There was a lot of people there.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ethan, but I could not actually see into the Virgil. Trust me, I tried to look in to see if I could see anything, but it was so dark in there, and there was just so many people and so much equipment around. And, we were being, told to walk to another area. So I couldn't really see at this point what was happening inside, but it was exciting to be there. And there was a sign outside. There was one thing we did see. There was a sign outside that said the Cobra Pit.
Yes, it was like open mic tonight.
Yeah, open mic tonight, the Cobra Pit. Yeah, so we're like, okay, well, at least, and we suspected this, but it looks like the name of the venue that we're going to be seeing this fake band in, and then eventually Weird Al in, is going to be called the Cobra Pit. So at least we sort of got an answer to what the heck the Cobra Pit is.
So we get to the holding area, and it was like two or three of these like large tents, open side tents with just chairs set up.
Yep. It's in a parking lot, which is directly behind the Virgil. And, besides the tents being in there, there's some other, table set up in there with a couple people standing at. There's a few huge trucks parked in there. There's some equipment maybe that was, just in there as well. And, it's early in the morning, but it's LA, the sun's out, and the way that the sun was angled, the tents weren't doing a lot to cover up, to provide shade.
Oh,
so about half of the chairs,
about
half the chairs were out in the sun. So, all these extras, all these people that are now walking in there, they're grabbing chairs and they're moving them and they're trying to find some space underneath, this tent to get out of the hot sun.
Well, and we're all wearing black clothes. We're wearing leather.
Right. We're dressed up like bikers at this point, So, people are, just trying to find any bit of shade that they can at this point. And I think you and we ended up setting up our chairs next to a fence that was provided shade for a little while until the sun shifted. And we had to go find another spot.
Yeah, and we're trying to be mindful because, they told us we had to wear the masks out there and stuff, so you don't want to sit right on top of someone, but there were 40 people crammed in under the shade, so it was kind of hard to have spacing.
Yeah, so, shortly after we got into the holding area, they come over, they explain, hey, this is the holding area, and, all the people really care about is they're like, where are the bathrooms, and where is Crafty, what they're calling Crafty, which I'm like, I don't know what Crafty is, but, and I'm sure they'll come tell us where these bathrooms are. So they come over, they're like, the bathrooms are, they're like a short walk away, maybe a block away, You could just go out towards the street where we came from. You hit a right, you walk down, you'll see them. And while you're there, you also see where Crafty is. And we're like, okay, great. And at that point, they're like, all right, we'll let you know when we need you pretty much. And a couple of people got up and left. And I was like, okay, I guess you just get up and leave. I don't know. And then they come back. And then shortly later, a few people are coming back and they're like, oh, they've got breakfast foods and everything. I'm like, I'm going to go check this out. I'm going to follow the next person who leaves and go check this out.
Yeah, so we went over to Crafty and kind of on the walk there, you could see some prop people setting stuff up outside the Virgil. And I saw just weird stuff like iron bars and like a stuffed cat and like fish and bricks and
Right.
and they had told us that we're gonna be throwing stuff at the punk band. So I was like, I wonder if we're gonna get to throw the cat or the fish. I was really
Right.
excited about that. Like they said, we get out to the street, take a right, walk a block, and then there was like kind of another parking lot that was for production. And
Right.
there was this food truck. And then a little farther past that was, a trailer with the porta potties or whatever it was.
Right, yeah.
A nicer version of a porta potty.
Yeah. So crafty, I find out, is basically a fancy way of saying craft services, aka a food truck. So I was like, okay, I understand what crafty is. And actually, what was really cool about crafty is that you were free to go up to crafty as often as you wanted, whenever you wanted, and you could get whatever you wanted, and it was totally complimentary. You just walk up, you tell the person, we're in the food truck, I'd like to have this, that, and the other. They would hand it to you, and everybody in the food truck was extremely nice, very friendly. They were like, if they didn't have something, that was on their menu, they would say, we don't have that, but it was really cool. You were free to go as much as you wanted. And I definitely took advantage of, getting snacks and food throughout the day.
Yeah. So there was a little whiteboard out front that gave like a listing of the kind of stuff they had. And we're kind of perusing this list, and right near the top, it says bear claws. And so I was like, Dave, we have to get bear claws. We have to, from Albuquerque. We have to get it. So, yeah, of course, we go up. I think I got like a bagel with cream cheese and a bear claw. And we noticed that they also had Coke Zero, which, if you guys know Dave and I, we both love Coke Zero. So, yeah, I got that. What did you get, Dave?
Yeah, well, I had to get a bear claw, so I got a bear claw as well.
I don't think you wanted a bear claw. I was like, Dave, you have to get a bear claw.
You know what? So let me tell you. So, I had a little bit of breakfast back at our, Airbnb before we left, in all the extra time that I was awake, before you got up. And, I was a little nervous to eat, but, I did figure I better eat something. So I did want to just get like a fruit cup. They had fruit cup. They had an apple. They had a whole bunch of different fruits. So I did get the fruit cup. I got an apple. And yes, I did get a bear claw. And I'm glad I did, because it was just the right amount of sweetness that I think I needed at that point.
Well, so after we got the bear claws, another biker went up and he's like, hey, can I get a bear claw? And we got the last bear claws. So the guy was like, wait a minute, I'll go check. And he's like, no, we're out of bear claws. No, it was really funny.
Yeah.
I was glad that we got him. And we did take a selfie with the bear claws, and I did send it to Eric. I was like, Eric, we got bear claws.
Yeah, it was really nice. You get to go. I mean, that was a nice perk. Everyone was extremely friendly over at Crafty, as well as, just in general, like throughout the whole day. And in the bikers too, like they were like, oh, please, the other extras were like, we're waiting around. They're like, oh, please go ahead of me, and get something, So it was a nice little perk to have that. And then you could go, like I said, anytime. It was a little bit like, sometimes I was like, I want to go get something, but I'm afraid that they're going to come out.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
Need me for a scene, and I'm going to come back, and no one's going to be in the tent, and I'm going to be like, what do I do?
Yeah, it was far enough away that, like, you wouldn't know if they came and got people. Like, you're far enough away that it's like, and, like, you're kind of told not to really have phones on set. So, like, yeah, people are using them in the waiting area, but there's also not like a charger or an outlet or anything. So it's like you kind of want to preserve it as long as you can. We have no idea how long we're going to be here.
Right.
But yeah, we just we're entertaining ourselves. We're, taking a couple selfies and stuff. And yeah, I think we talked about this the last bonus episode, but while we were there are people coming up, and they had like a new COVID center set up. And we saw Al come over.
That's right. That was like, we basically all morning, I mean, other than, a few trips to Crafty, we basically sat around pretty much all morning, a lot of waiting, and not hearing anything, when they would need us or anything. So, past time, other people were, chatting with each other, playing on their phones or whatever. But, like the highlight basically was that we got to see Weird Al, and he walks in, and he walks over to the desk, and he ends up taking his COVID test. And he was far enough away that we didn't really get to say hi to him, or he didn't see us. I don't think he saw us.
I don't think he saw us. Like a couple, like people kind of cheered when he walked in because everyone knows who Weird Al is, and he kind of like he kind of acknowledged people and like gave him like waves and stuff, but he did not see us because I was like waving both my arms like, Al. I'm sure he's used to people, yelling his name and waving. So
right, yeah. So that was like the excitement for the morning until about, I guess it was maybe around 11 o'clock or so is when our friend JoJo finally came out, and she walked over to what appeared to be 7 random people. I said, you, and you.
Well, she did. It kind of reminded me of like elementary school or something. She like would touch their shoulder and she'd be like 1, and then she touched someone else's shoulder 2, and she like counted up to 7. She's like, if I touched your shoulder and you got a number, come with me. And it was just random people. It was not Dave and I, and they disappeared into
right, they followed JoJo. We assume they went inside the Virgil or the Cobra Pit, if you will, to film something or set up something. Who knows? Shortly later, JoJo comes back out again. She walks directly over to Ethan and myself, taps our shoulders, goes 1, 2, and then taps the shoulder of this other big biker-looking dude. I mean, this guy was huge. He really looked like a giant,
very convincing biker.
Very convincing biker. Taps this guy's shoulder and says, "All right, the 3 of you, if I tap your shoulder, come with me." So we're like, "Oh, okay, this is awesome. We get to see what's going on."
Yeah. So she walked us by the props again. She brings us all the way around to the front of the building, and we go into the entrance, and it's very dark inside, but right across from the entrance is a door open, and we see Patton Oswalt sitting there with his foot raised up in a cast, but he was not dressed like Dr. Demento, so we're still like
that's
wondering.
That
like,
surprised
what
me,
was going on.
Yeah. We've heard rumors that Patton Oswalt is playing Dr. Demento, and we know that Dr. Demento is going to be in this scene because this scene is basically the scene where Dr. Demento discovers Weird Al for the first time. But how come Patton isn't dressed up like Dr. Demento?
Right. And remember, Dave, earlier I saw the guy dressed as Dr. Demento, and it didn't look like Patton to me because they looked too tall. So we were like really confused, but we didn't, it wasn't like we get to meet Patton. It's like we're getting whisked through this corridor, and there's like wires and steps and like stuff to trip on.
And Patton's far enough away that we can't even yell out his name and he'll hear us.
Right. Yeah. And we also don't want to be like annoying and we're on set.
Don't want to get kicked out at this point. Exactly.
So we're walking in, and there's crew people walking around. There's cameramen and stuff, and we do see a group of the bikers who are already in there. They're at the back of the bar. They're kind of like, I don't really know what's going on. It's kind of dark. We're kind of like trying to take everything in. And we're looking around. I see all the way on the other side is like the stage, and I think I see Jonah Ray, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to us.
This guy comes running up to us, and he's like, "Are you Dave and Ethan?" And we're like a little bit confused because we're not expecting anybody on set to know who we are.
Right. We're just lonely extras.
we're extras at this point. No one's asked us our names or anything like that, other than when we first checked in. And this person, I'm looking at them confused, trying to place who is this person. And I think this person realized my confusion and said, "Oh, I'm Eric." And we're like, "Oh, Eric Appel, the director." Wait, Eric Appel, the director, comes running over to us to say hello? How awesome is that?
And it was dark in there. He's wearing a mask. He's got a hat on. So it was like, and we don't know what to expect, and we're trying to take everything in. So once we got to meet Eric, it was so cool. He was like, he was thanking us. He was like, thanking us for being there, and we're just thanking him for letting us be there. And
I know
it was so cool to really finally meet him. Someone I've been communicating with for over a year at this point.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so cool. And so he's like, "Oh, I want you guys to meet Newman." And so he says Newman, and I'm like I'm thinking the guy from Seinfeld.
The guy from Seinfeld, yeah.
I'm like, Newman's
here? Okay.
But no, Newman was the last name of the first assistant director. So she's like, yeah, I'm Newman. And she shows us like her radio and it said Newman on it. And we're like, hey, nice to meet you. And I don't know if he says to Newman or if he says to JoJo. I think it was to JoJo. He's like,
yeah, because JoJo's trying to place us now. She's trying to place all the background people where they should be going, the extras. And, she's still trying to, do her job and place us in this group of bikers. And at that point, I think Eric turned to her and was like, no. These are our featured extras. I need them for the front row. So we're like, awesome. We get to be in the front row.
Well, and so the JoJo's like, oh, and she's like, what are your names? And, like Dave and Ethan. She's like, oh, you are the guys. Okay. So we don't know what, she knows that there's some guys that are special for some reason. And she didn't know it was us. And she's like, oh, how funny that I, randomly picked both of you guys together.
Right. So, basically, we're standing there like not sure what to do at this point. And I think it was either Newman or JoJo was like, well, we don't really need you for this scene. Why don't you two go back outside? Okay. So, we ended up leaving the same way we came in through the front door and went back outside. And I don't think that at least I didn't see it, they did not come out and pick two replacement bikers for us. So I'm guessing the other big biker-looking fellow that they picked was
sufficient,
was big enough to fill the spot that they needed us two for.
I kind of felt like, it wasn't like anyone was like, ooh, or anything, but I felt like it was like getting called to the principal's office. Like they just brought us and then now we're returning like to the set. Like, did these guys do something wrong? Like,
yeah, no one said anything to us, but I got to imagine that's probably got to be pretty common. They probably bring in more people than they need for the scene and then they end up not using them all and sending a few of them back. But yeah, I was expecting a little maybe reaction like, ooh, what did you guys do? But no, nobody said anything as we walked back.
I felt kind of weird, but at the same time, I'm like, Eric called us the featured extras.
I know. Like, here we are. Here we are. We're just two people who show up. We're extras, and we still know, really what we're doing at this point. But we show up, and like all of a sudden now we're being treated. The director, this guy who's got a million things going on in his mind, takes time to run over and say hello to us, and then, calls us featured extras,
right?
And we're going to be in the front row. I mean, I'm happy to be anywhere. I'm happy to be the guy in the back of the bar,
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, if I get on camera, great. That's wonderful. But now I'm being called a featured extra and I'm in the front row. I mean, your brain must have been exploding like my brain was exploding at that point.
I mean, just getting to meet Eric, my brain was exploding.
Yeah, I know.
It's like he knows who we are. No, it was so funny. And so we're back there. We're waiting and we're all sorts of jazzed up at this point because we're like, we got to go in there. We're the featured extras. We got to meet Eric. We get to meet Newman. It was so cool.
And it was pretty much like you said, it was like a jolt back to reality when we walk outside and we realize that nobody out there cares that we're
nobody cares
extras, or heard that conversation or even cares that we're walking back, immediately after we got called in. We just sit down and we're like big smiles on our face and, everybody else is still, just conversations going on. They're looking at their phones. They're trying to find shade,
Yeah, and you mentioned phones, so they were pretty strict. They told us you cannot have your phone. This is it's being filmed as a period piece in the 1980s, but also like we don't want people taking pictures and that kind of stuff, and like you will get in major trouble if you are snapping pictures or even on your phone during any time on set. Yeah,
they recommended that you pretty much put your phone in your bag when you go inside. Don't even bother bringing it inside. So I didn't even bring my phone inside. I just left it in my bag pretty much all day. I only took it out when absolutely necessary.
Yep, same with me.
When I was in the holding area or, far enough away from, the Virgil or any other place.
So they eventually start bringing some more bikers in, and this time JoJo's like, okay, now I can bring you guys in. So we start walking over, and they have us stop kind of at this, like, accessories, I guess I would call it, table.
Yeah, like it's a table with all jewelry and stuff on it. And they basically said, Yeah, they basically were like, yeah, we just gotta make sure that you guys, look like bikers. You've already been approved your costumes, but we're just gonna add a little bit of flair here and there.
Yeah.
They handed me a couple rings to try, and I tried the first one on, and it was too small for my fingers, so I had to go back and get a second one. But I ended up taking 2 rings from the jewelry. One of them was this skull with horns on it, which I wore on my left pinky finger. And the other one was this like dragon eye or some sort of...
Yeah, like an Eye of Sauron kind of thing.
Yeah, like a weird looking eye thing that I wore on my right pinky finger, and none of the other rings would fit over my fingers. And then I was also wearing my wedding ring, which is a gold band, and nobody at any point ever told me to take off my wedding ring throughout any of our, various approval processes. So I left it on, and they said, looks good. So those were the 3 rings that I was wearing throughout the rest of the day.
It was your glam.
That was my glam. They didn't think I needed a necklace or anything.
Yeah.
I did have, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but my sister did give me a chain, a pretty thin chain, which I...
Like a wallet chain.
Yeah, like a wallet chain, which was not attached to anything. It was just a chain that I attached to my belt buckle, and I had been wearing that throughout the day. And they saw that chain, and they said, actually, that's nice. Keep that on. So I did get to bring some of my own jewelry. I got to bring my own wedding band, and I got to bring my own wallet chain that was hanging from my belt the entire time.
Oh, and I guess this is, I wanted to mention that when I originally sent in my photos, I included pictures of me wearing my hat, not wearing my hat, but also wearing my glasses and not wearing my glasses. And at no point were they like, oh, don't wear those glasses. So my glasses were approved as part of the outfit, I was really glad because I really wanted to be able to see everything. Okay, so Dave, you're getting the rings, and the guy comes over and he hands me a chain. And I've never worn like a pocket chain before, so I was kind of struggling to like figure out how to put it on. And then the guy realizes, he's like, oh, that's not even a pocket chain. That's like a necklace. So he ended up giving me like this kind of tight necklace that I put on, like kind of a chain necklace. And then he's like, oh, let's get some buttons on your vest. And he like pulls out these buttons, and they're just kind of like random generic buttons. But I was like, all right, this is my opportunity. So I reach in my pocket and I pull out that incredible I Love Lucy button that Kenneth had given me as a gift. Exactly the same button as Al wore in I Love Rocky Road. And so I said to the guy, I explained the story, and I was like, it would really mean a lot to me if I could wear this. Plus, I think it, would look great. And he's like, yeah, that works for me. So I was like, yes, that's awesome. And as soon as I turn around to like start putting it on, the costume lady who denied it is standing right there. And I was like, oh no. And so I was like, he approved it. He approved it. She's like, okay. But that was all I had, is they gave me the necklace, and he did take a picture of me wearing the necklace as like proof that I had to return it.
Right. Yeah. We were told we have to return any jewelry that we were given, and they did take pictures of my hands wearing the 2 rings that I got as well. So we did have to return those later on in the day. So now, after we went through the jewelry, we go back in through the bar, and they bring us up to the front of the stage, which we're the featured extras, remember?
Literally touching the stage.
Literally we are up against stage. And let me just kind of set the setting a little bit here. This is it's a stage set up in a bar, and the stage is not very wide. It can maybe fit 4 or 5 people across the front. It's got enough room up there for drums, a guitar, some, amps or whatever, and then, a microphone for the lead singer. But it's not a very big stage, so there's maybe room for 4 or 5 of us to be standing up against the front. And, they have Ethan and myself standing up against the front, and then on the other side they had 2 other bikers standing. So it was like 4 across.
Right, yeah, 4 in the front row. And so like essentially where I was standing, I was directly to the right of the mic stand. So like the mic stand was essentially separating me and the guy to my left. It was this other guy, I think his name was actually David, and he had this like bright red and black plaid shirt on. Mm-hmm. And then you were to my right, which when you think about it, if you were looking at us from the front view, it was Dave and Ethan order, which they like
Yes.
we didn't do that. They placed us like that.
Right, they told us where to stand, so that was pretty cool. And I guess since this is a Weird Al podcast and everyone's familiar with the band, for those of you who are wondering, still trying to place exactly where we're standing, we are standing on Steve's side of the stage, Steve and Ruben's side of the stage.
Although, of course, Steve and Ruben were not there.
No, but just to give reference, everyone I think understands that. If they've ever seen Weird Al in concert, they will understand what it means to be standing on Steve's side.
So while we are standing there, we see the punk band, and they have this sign on the drums, like on the bass drum, and it says "skunk barf," and it's like
Skunk barf.
It's this like
I love it.
skunk barfing.
Yeah.
So we see, the lead singer, he's got this like big pointy mohawk, and then we see, of course, Jonah Ray, our buddy, all the way in the back. He's behind the drum set. He's got like black eyeshadow or mascara like around his eyes,
Right.
like smudged around, like really over the top.
Yeah.
And then the guitar player was over on Jim's side, and he had like a shaved head and kind of dressed like a punk, and it was really cool.
Yeah, they really look like a punk band. They look like they were skunk barf. I mean, they really looked the part. And we did get to yell a little bit at Jonah and say hi to him and that while they were trying to place everybody else. I guess there's a good time to talk about this, but obviously, I think people know who Jonah Ray is. He was playing the drums. Well, the gentleman playing, the main singer, the lead singer of Skunk Barf, his real name, I don't know what his character's name is, but his real name is Johnny Pemberton, and he plays, probably most famous for playing Bo from the television series Superstore, which was on NBC. If anybody's seen that, that's a great show. So that was really cool once we finally realized who that actor was, and he looked great. He had a giant mohawk going down the top of his head, and he had a chain, attached from his nose to his ear. He looked really cool, and Jonah looked great as well, and so did the other guitar, or I guess bass player. I think his name, we found out later, was Jeremy, or his
Jeremy,
real
yeah.
name was Jeremy. Yeah, I don't know what the character's name is for anybody in Skunk Barf at this point. But what's interesting about the guitar player, Jeremy, is that he had a 27 on his guitar.
Yeah, there was like
The
a
number
piece
27.
of masking
Yeah.
tape, and just written on there with Sharpie was 27, which we noticed immediately.
Right.
Another thing on Johnny Pemberton, if you're a fan of Son of Zorn, he's from that show as well, which I believe was also an Eric Appel show. So it's kind of cool that he was bringing in some of his friends, and I love that Jonah Ray was reprising his role as a drummer from the original Funny or Die sketch. So that was really cool. And so we didn't really talk to Jonah immediately because he was busy talking to Weird Al.
That's right.
Like the actual Weird Al, not like an actor, like Al.
Yes, we did get to see Weird Al. He did walk by briefly, and we got to say hi to him as he walked by. We didn't have much interaction with him because you might imagine he's busy being pulled in a million directions, and he's got a movie to film, that kind of stuff. We were trying to say hi to whoever we could whenever we could, but we also did not want to be disruptive in any way to any part of this process. So when we're in doubt, we just stood back and just took it in and did not try to put ourselves out there.
But Al knows who we are, so and we weren't filming or anything, and he was just like walking off the stage. So we were like, "Hey, Al," and he's like, "Oh, hey guys," and he like kind of didn't know what to do, so he just like gave us an elbow bump.
An elbow bump.
It was really cool getting to see him.
Yeah. All right, so at this point, I mean, they're setting everyone up, they're putting people in places, and they start handing out different props to us as to what we're holding. And so,
yeah, some guy just looks at me. He's like, "You need a beer," and he hands me like a beer.
right. But it was a glass of beer with like maybe, I don't know, a third of the beer left, maybe less.
Yeah.
A couple other of the bikers around us got the whole, either a can of beer or maybe some beer. I think it was around at this point where there was another person walking around handing out different props that we were supposed to throw at the punk band up on stage. And keep in mind that these are actual props. These are not like real items that we're throwing at them. They're made out of foam and just like, rubber or plastic or very light. They're not going to hurt if we actually do hit somebody with, these items. Initially, I was handed like a small half of a brick and a pair of underwear. And I know, Ethan, you were handed a large brick.
Yep. And I already had the beer.
You already had the beer at this point. And then I guess somebody else, I don't know if it was the same person or somebody else, came around and they took the underwear away from me.
They took the big brick from me.
They took the big brick from you. They handed you the underwear and they handed the large brick to the older gentleman standing behind me. So now I just had this half of a brick that I was holding. And you're holding underwear and a beer.
Yes. So kind of around the same time, after, we'd met Al, we were able to chat with Jonah a little bit. So Jonah is on stage and, it's just like, we're just sharing how excited we all are to be there. And while we're talking to him, Eric actually comes up on the stage and he starts talking to us a little bit. And I was just wearing my hat because I was just wearing it like out in the holding area. So I still had my hat. When Eric came by, I was like, Eric, can I wear this hat in the scene, or is this, should it be off? And he's like, he thought about it like for 10 seconds. He's like, yeah, you can't wear the hat. So I was kind of bummed about that. So I put it in my back pocket. And so then while Eric was there, I was like, hey, I want to show you this cool thing. And I showed him the I Love Lucy button on my jacket. And I told him the whole story and he was thrilled. He's like, oh, that's so cool. He's like, I am absolutely going to get a shot of that in the film. I want to make sure people see it. And he told us how they've been purposely putting little Easter eggs throughout the whole film, which was so cool. So, I mean, we already talked about that 27 we found, and I wonder if there's other stuff in that scene that we didn't even know about, but it was really cool. And then he also was talking about how there's this guy, Dan Butts, who is working on the film, who also had done a lot of other projects with Al. And this was right around when our interview with Craig Armstrong aired. And so Eric was just like, yeah, I was just listening to the Craig Armstrong interviews this past week, and I was talking to Dan, and I was telling him about the interview, and Dan's like, oh my God, I worked on all that same stuff. So he's like, you totally got to get Dan Butts on your podcast. And we're like, absolutely. Like, Eric Appel is giving us recommendations for the podcast. We're like,
very
absolutely.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, so a lot is going on, while we're in here and trying to take in as much as we can. And there's people all over the place going here and there, trying to get things set up. Eventually, we are directed how we should be reacting and how we should be acting in this scene. Initially, we're told that we are going to be indifferent kind of about the band that's up there, Skunk Barf. The way I kind of understood it is that we were at this bar, and we're there, and we didn't specifically come to necessarily see Skunk Barf perform, but since they were there,
it was an open mic night. So yeah, we're not really there to expect anything.
Yeah, so since we're there, we might as well pay attention. So we're kind of, it's just supposed to just sort of react to them, maybe bop up and down a little bit, kind of be, just like they're there and we're there, just kind of be politely, kind of just paying attention to them. And then at the end of their song, they would get together, they would stand up, they would scream, thank you, we are Skunk Barf. And we were directed to stand there in perfect silence, just staring up at them. And then somebody in the back of the bar would yell out, you suck. And that would be our cue to start booing and screaming and yelling at them and then throw our stuff up at the stage.
And there was also a guy behind us. His name is Thomas. He's a stunt actor. And he was directed that once the you suck and the booing started, he actually would separate Dave and I, like push us aside and jump on stage and start beating up the lead singer during all the chaos.
Right. So So, I mean, there were things going on, and basically, I don't know if they told you specifically where to throw anything, Ethan, but somebody had said to me, you should throw your half of a brick at the drummer. He's going to be holding up a cymbal and kind of cowering in the background. Try to hit the cymbal. Try not to hit him because that might hurt. But try to hit the cymbal, Yeah,
Jonah, he had the cymbal like a Captain America shield. Kind of like trying to save himself.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I got to throw stuff at Jonah during, my scene.
They told
My
me
big role.
to throw the underwear, aim for the guitarist, so the guy with the shaved head over where Jim would be standing. The lead singer was technically holding a bass guitar, so the guitarist was the guy on the Jim side.
Yeah.
Oh, and before we started filming, we got to talk to Jonah a little bit more, and he saw the interaction where Eric said I couldn't wear the hat, and Jonah's like, well, if they did let you wear the hat, then there would be this whole, like, weird time travel sub-story that would have to be in there, so he's like, it's probably for the best.
Yeah. As cool as it would have been, it probably wouldn't have been. Probably would have been a whole continuity, problem. Yeah, absolutely.
So once they, I think it was between Eric and Newman, they sort of describe, what's going to happen in the scene. And then they're like, all right, we're going to, I don't know if they said they were filming or if it was a practice, but Skunk Barf started playing and, we're going through the motions of like kind of being into them, kind of not really caring. It was so fun. I think we did it maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, we did it 3 times. Yeah. The first time, yeah. I mean, I guess people, I don't know, they didn't really, it's hard to react to something that you haven't seen yet, even though you were told what to do. So I don't think they got quite the response they were hoping out of. I mean, it was, there's a lot going on. Our stunt double friend Thomas, pushes through us. He rushes up to the stage at the appropriate time. And I'm supposed to throw my half of a brick at Jonah. I can't see Jonah because Thomas and Johnny are fighting directly in front of me. So I tried the best to throw the brick, and I end up hitting Johnny in the hair. It bounces off Johnny's hair. And, I don't think people are booing as loudly as Eric and, anybody else wanted them to. So they came out, and I don't remember, I think it was Newman maybe who came out, and she's like, no, you guys are really excited. There's a fight going on, a bar fight going on.
You want to see blood.
You want to see this, So, so we ended up shooting it a second time, and then a third time. I know we shot that 3 times that morning before somebody just yelled out right as the scene was ending, lunch, and everything just stopped. Like, people just stopped what they were doing and just left. And we were like, okay, it's lunch.
So there was a couple things that happened during those first 3 things. At one point, I don't know where your brick landed, Dave, but I think someone else picked up that brick and threw it. And however it threw, hit me directly in the forehead. And it really hurt. Like, it really hurt. And afterwards, the prop guy was like, I'm so sorry. That'll never happen again. I'm so sorry. It wasn't a big deal, but I was definitely surprised to be hit in the head. It was tough, like you were saying, like tough to aim and stuff because there's a lot of commotion. So Thomas, who pushed us aside and attacks the lead singer, there's another stunt guy on the other side of the stage who goes up and starts beating up the guitarist, and the guitarist is who I'm supposed to throw it at, but there's this big guy beating him up, blocking me. So I just sort of like had to throw the underwear, just like trying to like arc it so it would still hit the guitarist. And apparently one of the times I threw it, it landed on the head of the guitar. It was like dangling there.
Yeah, it was so much fun, do that. And it was great. I was really getting into it. It was having a good time. And all of a sudden, lunch, and everybody cleared out.
So when we went out to lunch, they wanted us to keep the props, so we keep the same props. So they took like our rubber brick, and they took my my underwear. But they were like, for the beer, they had this kind of like grid on a table made with masking tape, and each one had a number. So they're like, put it in a number and then remember which number so you can grab the same one when we come back.
Right.
And so I'm like kind of trying to figure this out. And Dave, you're like, you got to put it on number 27. So I did. I put it on number 27.
Like, what are you waiting for? Because somebody else grabs it, put it on number 27. Because remember, there's like, I don't know how many, I mean, there's maybe 10 bikers inside at this point, up against the stage. And, a majority of them are holding, some sort of drink. So, there's other people coming out with drinks or other items, that they were asked to hold. And they're just putting it down in any spot. And I'm like, 27? What's taking so long?
I just wasn't even like, I was still trying to figure out what was going on, but yeah, you made the right call by telling me to put it on 27. And then like throughout the day, anytime we had to go out, I had to put my beer. I always put it on 27.
Yeah, so we got outside and I guess we were heading back, and again, they stopped us. They took a few pictures of us, I guess just in case, I don't know, they need to recreate it, or I don't know, again, why they're taking pictures of us, who knows? They didn't tell us. And they told us we were in Group B, which is like the first time we've ever been grouped as anything all day. And they told us, just go wait for a people mover and we'd head over to lunch, which I guess at that point was going to be back at base camp. And that's where all those tables were set up. And then at this point, it was kind of funny because we got out there, and by the time we got outside, a majority of the bikers either had already been told it's lunch, so they had already been on the people movers and headed back, or they were heading back over to the people movers. But the bikers that we were inside with, because we were stopped take pictures, we had to, put our props down in the proper spot. By the time we got back, they're like, we're not going to get a full hour for lunch. We need to be compensated. We're going to get a short lunch, and they were really, making sure JoJo, knew that, they weren't going to get the full hour lunch.
Yeah, and one guy was like, yeah, and I saw smoke in there, so, we definitely need the smoke bump. And
right. Another guy's like, the confined space bump. And JoJo's like, I got it. I'm writing all your names down. Don't worry about it.
And one guy was like, technically we're dancing, so you got to get the dance bump. Unfortunately, Dave and I, we're not union, so none of those bumps applied to us.
Yeah. It took it a little bit back to reality for me. Ethan and I, we're out there, to have fun and have a good time and have a great experience. A lot of these people, pretty much everybody else, all these other people are out there because this is their job.
Yeah.
This is what they do for a living, so they want to make sure that they're being paid appropriately, and, rightfully so,
Absolutely.
being paid, what they should be paid, so, if they get these little things like, a short lunch bump, extra pay because they only had a half-hour lunch instead of an hour lunch, or if they get these bumps, this extra pay because they're in a smoky scene or because, a crowded scene or whatever, then they should be getting all that. So, and JoJo understood that, she was making sure everybody, she took down everyone's name, and made sure that they got paid appropriately. Yeah. So
I will say though, Dave, if I was union, I guarantee they would have had to pay some kind of fine for hitting me in the head with that brick. Like, there's no way. Like, if being in a confined space is a bump, I think getting hit in the head with a brick is definitely up there. But I'm not union, so they can take advantage of me.
If it's not, it should be a bump. Absolutely. Because you probably have a bump on your head because of
That's
that.
right.
So it should be a bump. I guess besides being put in the B group, JoJo also told us we were the purple group for lunch. And I'm not sure why that was important because that never came up again throughout the entire time we were there.
Yeah, and I guess that was just, the other bikers got a full hour lunch and we only got a half-hour lunch. So that was important for something.
It was important for something, but as far as I know, that never came up again. So now we've been placed in two groups. We've been in the Group B and the purple group. Eventually, they do get us onto a people mover, and we're heading back to lunch. And I think, Ethan, this is a good time for us to take a break. We'll talk about what happened at lunch and what happened in the afternoon on future episodes.
Yeah, so thank you guys for tuning into this. We will be back next episode with all of our adventures, at lunch and then returning to the Cobra Pit.
Well, that's it for Chapter 3 of our We're the Al Yankovic Story series. Stay tuned for more chapters on future episodes.
As you're listening to this series, if you have any questions for us, please be sure to leave a message on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And of course, we'll do our best to answer them on a future episode.
This episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito at Burrito, your Burrito, or hop on over to Wizard Burger for mouthwatering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Troy to Albany to Uranus, Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito Burrito, Jackson Scoggins, and Discover Darwin. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our amazing close personal friend level Patreon supporters. Mike, Matthew, Kenneth, Gus and Alicia, Allison, Adriana, Ajax, Jake, Zeb, Zach, Dana B, Blair, Kev, Javier, Scott, UH Jeff, Nancy, and also thanks to Jason and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your very own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with your otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence.
And now would be a great time to join if you haven't already, because not only will you be the first to hear our longest ridiculously self-indulgent bonus episode to date, which happens to be our concert review from the world-famous Carnegie Hall in New York City, you'll also be the first to hear our brand new 2023 ridiculously self-indulgent bonus episodes once they drop.
And do not forget to check out our official merchandise shop over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our fine podcast. If you are heading to Hawaii like we will be doing very soon, or doing any other traveling in the near future, be sure to pick up your very own official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast tote bag to carry all your belongings. We have 4 great options to choose from over at shop.2000inch.com, including our podcast logo, our official caricature logo, the Gill and Chill logo, and the ever-popular TSA-friendly We Hate Intern Frank logo. What the heck? Pick up all 4 if you want. You can never have too many tote bags.
And then pick up a 5th one to carry all your brand new tote bags. We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community at group.2000inch.com and visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rum to Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at weirdalpodcast.com or 2000inch.com.
And while you are there, make sure you click on Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episodes to follow along with our adventures on tour. And make sure you click on Black and White and Weird All Over bonus episodes for our special series where we sit down with author John Bermuda Schwartz and he walks us through his first book, page by page and picture by picture.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, it will crazy glue your head to the bottom of a big steel girder.
Please no CODs. Do not miss out on this deal. Plus, we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA, as seen in the Illustrated Al. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
Thank you once again to us for recording these Weird the Al Yankovic Story chapters last year. We also want to thank Dan Pasternak, Michael Lesticat, Bobby Samuels, Joey Patterson, Javier Valdez, Lori McMillan, and Christina Rodriguez. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kima West for our incredible podcast theme song, and thank you to Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you, as always, for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until we meet again, remember to gill and chill.
Now, not sure if you saw the news, dear listeners, but Roku was one of the casualties of the recent Silicon Valley bank collapse. They said in a regulatory filing that they had $487 million of largely uninsured deposits in the bank.
Crikey! I mean, yikes! Since it's still not totally clear to what extent they will be able to recover their money, Ethan and myself decided to put together a little business strategy to get Roku back on their feet, just in case.
All right, number 1. Put Weird the Al Yankovic Story in theaters, finally!
Number 2. Hire UH Jeff to run a Kickstarter campaign so that they can
Number 3, Greenlight, Weird the Al Yankovic Story 2.
Number 4, hire back their star featured background actors in a larger and more prominent role.
5, ?
6, profit.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 189-inch.
They're coming to take us away, haha.
If being in a confined space is a bump, getting hit in the head with a brick is definitely up there.
Because you probably have a bump on your head.